Okay, so this is how I would go about making a bead on the bottom of a French Provincial style apron. We were discussing this in the chat room over at World of Wood forum, and I had a question about it, and so I decided to go ahead and make a how-to video. What I've done here is made a pattern for the apron. It's typically the easiest way for me to get this right, to get these curves straight, is to make a pattern, trace it, cut to my line, and then the pattern route. As you can see, I've drawn a really heavy line on my workpiece here, and what I'll do is I'll cut exactly to that line, leaving just the pencil line. Put my pattern back on. You can see the screw holes there. I do that so that the pattern will be perfectly aligned. This is actually the back of the workpiece, so those screw holes won't be seen on the workpiece, and I'll pattern route to this, and that saves me on a whole lot of sanding. It's a lot easier to sand a 1/4 inch piece of plywood pattern than it is to sand a 1 inch thick workpiece. Now I've got the workpiece cut out with the pattern attached, and as you can see, I've got some notes written on my pattern, and that says, if you can't read that, it says climb cut. The reason for that is I'm using a piece of alder, and alder has a bad tendency to flake out really badly whenever you cut uphill against the grain. If you look at it, the grain on this piece is going to be running like that, and as the cutter head comes around and strikes that, it's going to want to tear that off towards the front of the piece. So I will what is referred to as climb cutting on that, and I'll show you how to do that safely. There's a right way to do that and a wrong way to do that. The wrong way can take the workpiece and fling it across the shop and into you if you're standing in the wrong place. So you definitely want to be safe as you climb cut. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is all my cuts that go with the grain. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to have to do some climb cutting on this piece. These areas here, the bit would have a tendency to lift up the grain of the workpiece and cause it to tear out, and could potentially ruin my workpiece and cause me to have to start over if that happens. So what I'll do is I'll climb cut it, and what I do is I actually start at the back end, and I'll just cut off a little bit and cut with the router bit, just like so, and that should prevent most, if not all, of the tear out that I'm worried about. Then to finish off that section, I'll just make a real quick pass going against the grain to just take off the little scallops that leaves behind. As you might be able to see, it didn't leave a perfect surface. There's still a little bit of tear out there, and Alder is really bad about that. But I can deal with that. This piece would be on the facing downward, and you wouldn't see that, and so it would only need to be cleaned up to the point where it felt smooth. So I'll go ahead and finish those up, and we'll move on to the next step of the process of making this bead that's going to run along the bottom edge of this apron. Okay, now we're in business with how we're actually going to cut the bead on the bottom of this apron. What I've got here is my edge guide that I'm going to use, and what you can see here is that I've just taken a bearing and attached it to the bottom of a custom made router base so that it's a little bit more than a half an inch. The edge of the bearing is a half an inch from the bottom of the roundover on this plunge bit that I'm going to use, and it's just real easy to measure. You just stick a ruler up there, and that's the point I'm talking about, because we're going to use a 1/4 inch roundover on the outside to finish off the bead. We're actually going to do the inside first. You don't want to do your roundover on the edge of the board first. If you're to do it here first, then your bearing might not have a good surface to write on. So we're gonna plunge it in and do a roundover along this line on the workpiece. Now you might be able to see that I've once again marked my workpiece. I try to do things as dummy resistant as possible because I know that I have a tendency to mess things up, so I try to clearly mark everything that I do. That's the line that we're going to be trying to follow with the bead when we route, right there. Okay, I've pulled the bit in just so I can do a few practice runs with this method. You always want to do a few practice runs on this, no matter how many times you do it, because you want to be comfortable with what you're doing. Basically what's going to happen is that bearing there is going to ride along. That bearing is going to ride along the edge of the workpiece, and I'll be routing with it right along there. Okay, now I'm set up to do a practice run. As you can see, I've got a mark here on the edge of the apron. That's where it's going to meet the leg, and I'm going to want to have some room that I don't have a bead on yet, so I can blend that into the leg, because the bead will go ahead and continue on down the leg. So that's why that is there. I'm just going to take my router and do a few practice runs. Now on this workpiece, I'm going to have to plunge in, so I'm just going to rock my router in just a little bit, and then I'm going to be running from right to left, and this is so that the spinning action of the bit pulls the router into the bearing. If I ran the other way, then it would have a tendency, if I go this way, it's going to have a tendency to drift off, and that will destroy my bead. And so always remember, you want to feed from right to left. Okay, I've got my router set at a 1/4 inch, and I should be ready to go. Alright, there's half of my bead. The other half will be taken care of by the 1/4 inch roundover that I'll use with the guide bearing to get the other half. I stopped here because the bead will start to get thicker as this turns into a leaf, and we'll talk about carving that on the next video. And now that I've done that side, I'll just do this side, and we'll be ready for the roundover. The last thing to remember when you're doing this that I forgot to mention is if you remember your high school geometry and a tangent line, you want this point that I have on here to be tangent to your curve. If you get it too far one way or the other, it's going to change your distance as that bit rotates. So you want to try and keep it tangent to the curve as you go along. Okay, I've got everything set up to do the 1/4 inch roundover on the edge, which will give us a nice 1/2 inch bead. Once again, I've marked the areas where I don't need the roundover, just so there's no mistakes. There's our bead. Still needs a little sanding and a little hand work, but saved a lot of time by not doing that by hand. And that's it. It's starting to take a little shape. Okay, we're just going to do one more shot of what it looks like as you're looking at it. You can see I did a little round over. Those are going to be the ends of some leaves, and I've got a lot more carving to do, but I just wanted to remove a little stock with the router bit just to save a little time when it comes to carving. There's going to be a lot of carving. There's a to do on this still, but you can see it's a lot easier to do as much as you can with the machines. We've got a nice approximately 1/2 inch bead along the bottom, and we still got all this material to remove to fade into that, but we'll do that a little bit later in another video. There's a lot of ways you can do that. I'll try and go over some of those in a second video. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.